Okay, this video is going to show how to get RetroPie up and running on your Raspberry Pi. It follows on from the first video that shows you the hardware that you need, like the Raspberry Pi itself, the SD card, the controller, the power, that sort of thing. This video is going to show how to get the RetroPie software from download off the internet and onto your SD card that you can put in the Raspberry Pi. It's pretty straightforward. All you do is download the image and copy or write that image to the SD card with the software. So RetroPie Project basically brings a load of different scripts and configurations together to save you having to do it individually, so you've just got one file to deal with. It makes it a lot simpler, and you can get there by going to this web page here at the top, blog.petrockblock.com, and on this page you can download the RetroPie image, which is currently 2.3. On this page, if you hover over the RetroPie project and go to downloads, you'll be shown some options to get this file down to your computer. Obviously I'm doing this on a Windows PC, but pretty much the same holds for other, whether it's you do it on Linux or Mac. There's always a similar way of going about this. On Windows we've got the RetroPie project, and you've got 4 different ways of downloading it. This is 1.1, so we won't use that. We want 2.3, and we just download it rather than use a torrent or Google Drive Mirror. So if we click that, RetroPie Project SD card image, and you get to this screen where you can download it. Now I'm just going to click download, and it says here, it's got details that when you do this you really need an SD card with at least 4 gig of space to start this, but with RetroPie you'd probably want something like 16 or maybe even 32 if you're going to download a lot of ROMs. Okay, so I'm hitting download here, and it should get taken to, okay, so it goes directly down, it downloads this zip file to wherever your default download is, or if you're using a different browser it might prompt you for a location. So wherever you set that file to is where you're going to need to collect it in a minute, and it's a .zip file, so it's a compressed archive that we need to open in a moment. Now it's fairly large, it's 1.2 gig compressed, so it would take a while depending on your download speed. I've grabbed this one earlier so we can check this out. But as you can see, it just downloads the zip file, and then we can deal with that in a minute. So I'll cancel that because I've already got that. That's the first file you need, and that's pretty much all you need from the PetRockBlock website. There is a lot more help and support here, so if you've got any sort of questions, their forum is great. It's got a lot of people on it talking about the RetroPie project, so you can get a lot more tips and help there. The other thing you'll need is, obviously you need the SD card from the first part of the video, but to write this image that we've downloaded to the SD card, the software that I tend to use on Windows is Win32 Disk Imager, and the address is at the top here, sourceforge.net/projects/Win32 Disk Imager. And again, it's just a case of downloading a small piece of software. Hit the green button at the top here where it says download. It's pretty small, this one, 12 meg, so it wouldn't take very long at all. So if I click that, it takes you to a separate page where the download will start automatically in a few seconds. If you just wait a moment, you should get a pop-up, and there we go. So Chrome is automatically downloading that for me here. It doesn't take any time at all, really. It's nearly finished now, and that's just a program that you install separately like any other Windows program. You double click it, hit next a few times, and that's installed. Okay, so that's the 2 bits of software that you need to start with. And you can get that whether it's in your download folder or your desktop or wherever you put it. I've put these 2 here. That's the Win32 Disk Imager. To install it, you double click it, hit run, and run through a few next. I've already installed this, so I'm not going to run through that option now, but it's very straightforward. Just hit next until it's installed. And then separately, the RetroPie image, that comes down in a zip document and is pretty big. It's 1.2 gig. I've double clicked it because Windows can deal with zip files without any extra software, so you can just open that up and you can see the image file here. Depending on the software you've got installed on your computer, you'll have a different icon for something that thinks that it can open the IMG file, but you don't want to open this with any other software other than the one we're going to write to with the SD card in a minute. But you do need to get this file out of the zip, and the easiest way is simply click with the left mouse, drag to the desktop or any other folder, let go, and Windows will start extracting that file that's in the zip file to be uncompressed and just ready to use. Once it's uncompressed and you can just see the .img file in your folder, whether it's desktop or wherever, then we can use the other software to write it to the SD card. So at this point you do need to get your SD card or micro SD card, depending on the option you've gone for, into your computer. There might be a direct slot, or you might have a card reader. They're only about £2 or £3 to buy on Amazon or eBay, a card reader, so you just need to get that SD card into your computer and detected. Okay, so I've dragged that image out of the zip file. I can close that folder, and let's put it up here. Just drag that there so you can see it a bit more clearly. You've got the IMG file that's 3.2 gig uncompressed, so that's why the instruction said you need at least a 4 gig card to start using this project, because that's what the image size is going to be. And within this, it isn't just RetroPie, it's everything you need. So it's got the Raspbian operating system for the Raspberry Pi in there as well, and the advantage of this image file, it's got all of the configuration for RetroPie already set up. You could do it manually. You could install Raspbian on your SD card for your Raspberry Pi, and then install Emulation Station, then install RetroArch, and then install all the other bits and bobs, but this is just much quicker to do it this way. Okay, so we've got that file, and we're going to now run the software, the Win32 disk imager that we installed earlier. So I'm just going to click this start button, type Win32 so it finds it, run that, and it says are you sure you want to run it? Press yes, and Win32 disk imager opens. And this is geared to writing to an SD card, so on that basis it only finds cards or drives that it thinks are SD cards. So here it thinks it's either G or H, and it is really important to make sure you do select the right one, because it will write over the data you've got there. And to help work out exactly which one you want, if you press your start button and go to computer and get this view where you've got your computer, I can see that I've got the two it's found. If I put that side by side, I might see that a bit more clearly. A G and H, which is my book G and Kingston H. Now I know that I've got a drive attached USB terabyte that's my book, so I know that's G, and I know that a Kingston 16 is my 16 gig SD card that's 16 gig in size, unsurprisingly, and it's H, so I know it's H that I want to deal with. So it is important to make sure you select the right drive there. So select H there, and then it says where's the image file, so you press this browse button, and I know that I've put it on my desktop, and I know that it's this .img file here, so click that, press open, and it puts it there. And all I've got to do now is press write, and it just double checks, are you sure you want to put it on H? And I know that's the right card, so I'm just going to say yes, and then it starts writing the file. Now it is pretty big, it's 3.5 gig, it's going to take a while, so what I'll do in a moment is skip to the end here, but all that that's going to do is progress to the end, and when it hits the end it says finished, you hit OK and close the program down, and then you can just eject the SD card, and you can do that easily using the inbuilt Windows option. In the bottom right hand corner you'll have this option here, it looks like sort of USB, look really similar to that anyway. If you left click that, it brings up the option to eject the mass storage, and then it's just a bit safe to eject that SD card. So then you'll have the SD card, you put that in the Raspberry Pi, power it up, attach the power, the HDMI cable to your TV, and the controller in you could put at that point, and a keyboard definitely, because you'll need to put a few more commands in. So what I'll do now, I'll stop this section and follow up with the next area, where we're going to log into the Raspberry Pi itself and start configuring the RetroPie. But this is all you need to do to get the image up there. So it's just download the image, extract it from the zip file, use Win32 Imager to write that across to the SD card, and then once you've got that, you've basically got your RetroPie project sorted. Okay, when you put that SD card into your Raspberry Pi and connect the HDMI cable to your TV, it should boot up, and you'll see on your TV the text appear on the screen, and the first thing it does is show you, after the text sort of appearing scrolling through, the RetroPie splash screen, and then it runs to the Emulation screen, splash screen, and it runs obviously Emulation Station, which is the interface to play the retro games. And the first thing it should do is try to detect if you've got any controllers installed. Now I've booted it without my controller installed, and the first thing it says is welcome, no gamepads detected hold a button on your device to configure it, or press F4 on the keyboard to quit. So because we need to configure it a bit first, I'm just going to press F4. So when it beeps and says press F4 to quit, just tap F4, which I'm doing now, and it's dropping back into, it'll drop back into the black screen with the text on the screen. And because we're going to do this remotely, or you could do it directly on the computer, but I'm going to do this remotely because you might in the future want to make various changes, and it's often easier to do it remotely. So I've plugged in to the Raspberry Pi the Ethernet cable, the Cat5 cable, to give it a network connection. You could do it wirelessly, but to start with it's a lot easier and quicker sometimes just to put the cable in. So my Raspberry Pi is cabled up, connected to my router, so you can connect that however you want just to get the connection there. And I can see that now this is started, and you'll be able to see when you've pressed F4 you'll get the Raspberry Pi text, which I'll show you in a second, and it's telling me that the IP address, it shows me there what the IP address is. Now to connect to it remotely, which you probably want to do in the future, you can use, there's probably a few tools out there that do it, but a popular one is called Putty, which I've got on the screen here. Here's the web address, I'll put that in the comments, but it's www.chiark.greenend.org.uk/tilde/sgatham/putty/download.html, and the one you want to download would just be this top one here. So if you click on that and download it, it's not an installable file, you just double click to run it. So I could download that now, but I've already got it installed, so I'll run mine. But you just click that and download it to your download directory or your desktop, run it, and it'll prompt you. So it'll prompt you in a very similar way to this screen here. This will be the screen that you get. So on the connection type you choose SSH, which is that, and I can see on the TV where it's booted, it's telling me in the red text that my IP is 192.168.0.103, and port 22 is right. You just leave that, and then you can press open, and it connects to that, as long as you've got a connection obviously on your computer and the Raspberry Pi is connected by cable or Wi-Fi. It'll connect OK and login as. The login is Pi, P-I, and the password default one is Raspberry. And you'll get that. Here we go. This is the text. This is basically what I've got on the TV screen now anyway. So once you're at that stage, that's pretty much all you need to get connected, and you can run some. Okay, so that should be a bit clear on the screen now with any luck. The first thing we're going to do is update the Raspberry Pi with the latest version. So with RetroPie it installs a set of software, and that was built in July 2014, and some of those pieces of software might have been updated since. So these commands basically check that and that you're running a current version. You could carry on with it exactly as it is, it would work fine, but it's sort of typical to update these. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure, or see how dated the core Raspberry Pi elements are, and if you've got these commands that you're or you write these down that you're copying from a web page or a document, you can copy and paste into this window by pressing the right mouse button. So I've copied some text, tapping the right mouse button just to speed things up. So you can type for the first part sudo, which means run this command as an administrator basically, RPI update, so it just updates the core areas. Now this is on a SD card that I've just built, that I've just shown in this demo, so I'm not too sure how long this will take, but if it's a while I'll just sort of fast forward a bit. Okay, so I'm running that now. Does a few checks about what version's already on there and connects to the internet. So it is important that when you do this, the Raspberry Pi has a connection to the internet, and easiest, quickest way is to put that in with an Ethernet cable, just to give it a bit of a decent, stable, reliable, fast connection whilst it's doing this. Okay, so it's finished that section, and it does confirm that a reboot is needed to activate the new firmware, so it's worth rebooting first. And you can do that by typing sudo again as an administrator and reboot. That will lose the connection to your Pi because it would be rebooted and not be able to offer a network connection, but then you just run through this same process we did a moment ago to reconnect to it. So if I do sudo reboot now, you can see that it's going down for a reboot, and there you go, you get the error saying it's lost the connection because of the reboot. So what we'll do now is just reconnect to it. It takes a moment obviously to reboot, and you'll see if you've still got it connected to your TV screen exactly where it is in the boot up sequence. And again, it'll go back into emulation station, so you'll need to come out of that with F4 just to get back to the terminal session. Okay, so if I hit OK there, inactive, I'm going to quit this and run it again. Okay, so it'll be the same IP, 192.168.0.103. Okay, so we're back at the Raspberry Pi after we've done sudo RPI update, and the same login details as before. Login as Pi, the password is Raspberry, and you get the little RetroPie sort of configuration here, showing you some basic details like your IP address. And the next command we want to run is going to run through all of the installed software on the Raspberry Pi and the Raspbian operating system build, check that everything, all the packages it's got locally, all the software it's got locally are updated, and then also once it's downloaded the updated versions, it will upgrade the downloaded versions. And you can do that all in one command, which is this one here. Sudo, again, that runs it as administrator. apt-get, which gets all the packages and updates them locally, so all the versions locally are current, and then the upgrade actually upgrades them. And the -y at the end there just means that it's going to prompt you to say, are you sure, and it automatically says yes. So again, this could take a while, so I might skip to the end. I'll just press enter and see how that goes through. As you can see, it's sort of running through all the packages, downloading updates where it needs to, and it shouldn't take too long because you'll have a half decent broadband connection, and there's not a massive amount, but it could take a few minutes to run through these. Okay, so that took about 10 minutes or so in total. I guess sort of an average time might be between sort of 15 minutes, something like that, but it should get there in the end. And just for sort of clarity, let's reboot that again, and we can see, here we go, so it should lose the connection in a minute. Just rebooting, okay, and again you can follow this on your tally and or your display screen, whatever you're using to output the video, and you can see it reboot. So that's everything updated. It's just a one-time thing, you won't need to do that again, but it's worth doing just to peace of mind that you've got current versions of the software. Okay, so I'm going to quit this and reload it. Again, this is Putty, which I showed earlier. Again, the Raspberry Pi will boot into I think I did that a bit early there, I didn't connect. Let me try again. It'll boot straight into Emulation Station again. It's not, you can change that, but whilst we're configuring it, there's no need there. Okay, so I'm running Putty again, and I know that my IP is 192.168.0.103. Open that up. Sorry about the video going a bit funny here, it's just, there we go, right. Log in as Pi and Raspberry. And when this logs in here, it is worth looking at the little text that comes up in colours, just to confirm the use. Now, it is a 16 gig SD card, but you can see at the top there in the white text, where it's got the size details, it thinks it's only 3.1 at the minute, because that's pretty much the image size. And you want to make use of more of that, obviously, so you can do that and expand your card so the Raspberry Pi, the Raspbian or RetroPie can see all of your available space, and you can do that with the text sudo raspi-config, like that. I'm going to hit enter, and you get a little menu screen, and the first option there, number one, expand file system, which ensures that all of the SD card can be used. So I'm going to press enter there. and it runs a couple of commands, and that's done. The file system will be enlarged upon the next reboot. The only other thing I think we need to look at in here, I mean obviously you can change your password if you want, and you can say don't boot into Emulation Station, just go straight to the command line, change the localization. Mine's, I think by default this was set to GB, so I'm not going to change these. Okay, back to where we were going. The point that you do want to run on this is number 7, overclock, which just makes the CPU on the Raspberry Pi run that a little bit faster, which is good for emulating some of the newer games on that. So if I go in overclock, this is a warning that if you do overclock, there is a chance that because the CPU will be running hotter, the lifetime might be a bit shorter, but by and large, lots of people tend to do this without any issues, and I think the RetroPie defaults to medium, but let's put it on at least high just to get a bit more out of it. And you can always experiment with this by editing the config.txt file in the boot directory, but you'll see other instructions and details about that on the web anyway. So I'm going to set high. There we go, done. And that's pretty much all we have to do on that section. So I'm going to finish that, and I do want to reboot just so you can see the new size. So again, we'll probably lose the connection to the Pi whilst it reboots. Just wait for that to get back in. Again, you'll notice on your video display screen that it's going to go back into Emulation Station. I'll quit this and open it again. Same IP, 92.168.0.103. Okay, so log in as Pi. Pi. Password Raspberry. Now we expanded the disk space, so you should see when this output's here, the size is now 15 gig, not 3.2. So that's the key thing that we wanted to do there. Now that we've run the initial sort of configuration, the next part we want to do is run the RetroPie scripts themselves, which is a lot of what the RetroPie project brings to running the emulation of those games. So it's definitely worth going in there and configuring it. So when you boot into your Raspberry Pi, you're in this home directory, which is why you see that tilde, and to print the working directory just to confirm where you are, it's pwd, and then it says home pi. Now in home pi you can list the directory by pressing ls, and we've got some folders, and where we want to go is the RetroPie setup now. So I put cd change directory into RetroPie setup. It is case sensitive, so make sure that you copy exactly that name there, press enter, and we're in RetroPie setup, and again I'll list the directory, and what we want to run is the script that's been put together to configure this, and it's called RetroPie_setup.sh. But to run that, you run it as administrator, so sudo, and because it's a script, you want to execute it, you prefix it with a full stop /, and then type RetroPie, or the name of the file there, RetroPie_setup.sh. Okay, now if I run that, we should get a similar script we saw earlier with the Raspberry one, but this is for RetroPie. So the first thing we want to do is go to option 4. Option 4. This will update the script to the latest version to make sure we've got all the options there. Okay. So again, it's going to need an internet connection. Make sure it's all connected there, and that was done. So now it's just saying to run it, you've got to restart it. So cancel that, go back in. If you press the up arrow, it'll show you the text you typed last to save you typing that again, and press enter. And now it just makes sure that we're running the latest version. And the areas that we want to go in here are setup, and I think that's pretty much all we'll need in here. We don't need to update the binaries or source-based installation. As you can see, it takes a long time, and we don't really need it. It'll be fine as it is. 3, setup. Okay, so what I want to do in here is register the RetroArch controller. Now there is a separate video all about this, so you can check that out, but I'll probably do it just quickly here as well. Just checking a couple of notes if there's anything else you have to do in here. No, that's pretty much it in here. You just run the RetroPie setup to configure the controller. Now when you register the RetroArch controller, that's making sure the system knows that you've got your USB controller plugged in and configured for use with the games. It's not the file or the configuration to run it with Emulation Station. When you run Emulation Station, it prompts you to do it anyway, so that's separate, and I should be able to show you that in a minute. But what we're doing here is just make sure that the games, when you get into a game, it knows what to expect. Otherwise the game will work, but you won't be able to control it. So make sure you've got your USB controller plugged in. I'll just run through this briefly. I might do a separate video on controllers as well, because they seem quite a popular topic. By default, RetroArch will automatically look for this file that it's going to create now, so you don't have to edit retroarch.cfg files to say, oh, this is my controller setting, these are the buttons. It will just automatically look for this self-generated file, run on this. So I'm going to press enter, and it says, okay, connect only the controller to be registered, and obviously you'll need a keyboard or a keyboard on your PC doing it this way. Okay, and it's saying get ready to press buttons, make sure they're all sort of centered and not one angle isn't pressed down, so it's going to find a false key or anything. And it says at the top there, the second line down, using joypad USB 2-axis 8-button gamepad. Now someone else has got the same USB controller and it's detected as USB 2-axis 8-button. Their config file would work for you, so you could sort of like swap config files and have the same buttons, but it doesn't take a second to set it up. You just press enter and then press B, prompting Y, select button, start, up, down, left, right, A button, X button, left button and right button. And RetroArch continue to ask for some other buttons that it can use, be aware of if you've got a different type of controller, but if you don't press anything, it'll just time out. It takes about 4 seconds per option, and I think there's probably about another sort of 8 or so buttons that it can detect, but I've got a basic controller here. It looks like a SNES layout. It works pretty well with a lot of RetroArch systems, so I'm just running that. And to get this up and running, you don't, at this point, you could skip all this and just use a keyboard when you're in the game, because there's a default sort of setup, but obviously it's a lot more practical to use a USB controller, so you may as well do it before you start getting into the game. This will nearly be done. It generate a file. Again, the separate video shows you where this file is saved and how to edit it, and you can add extra lines like how to escape out of a game with the buttons on the joypad rather than having to use a keyboard and hit escape. Okay, so the configuration file has been saved as, it tells you the file name there, USB, 2-axis 8 button gamepad, and that's been written out and will be used by RetroArch from now on because it can do that automatically. You don't have to do any other settings really. Hit OK there, and just running down these, there are some options like configure audio settings. You can sort of force it to HDMI, but again, by default everything here should be fine, so you don't need to change any of these. Auto start Emulation Station's already on, it will already automatically boot there, and that's pretty much it. What I'll do now is go back to the PC screen and you can see how to get some basic ROMs on your Raspberry Pi RetroPie installation. Okay, so once your Raspberry Pi is configured, which are the basic steps you've seen earlier, the only thing left really is to get the ROMs on that you want. Now ROM is, let's fire up a web browser here. ROMs are well, read-only memory files of the game. So Mega Drive cartridge that had all the data on the actual read-only memory area of that cartridge, like NES and all the other cartridge-based games. And because these can degrade and worsen over time and maybe not even be readable, it's very popular to use tools to rip off the data that's on that card and save it as a file on your computer, a ROM file. And that way you can easily continue to play on different systems like the Raspberry Pi rather than need the original hardware. There's plenty of websites out there about emulation. You can even play games online in your browser, like this game-olders.com site. you can play computer games from the retro systems in the browser itself. But obviously there's much more popular ways of doing this, like on the RetroPie and other portable systems. So if you've got a game, I mean, it depends on copyright rules and country to country varies, but if you can play that ROM file and you own the original, you can just put that in the Raspberry Pi and play that. And there's plenty of sites where you can get the ROM files to save you ripping them yourself. You can just download all the ones that you own. Okay, so on the desktop I've downloaded one of the files that I've got, which is Sonic the Hedgehog. I've got the cartridge for this, so I've downloaded the ROM file and it comes in a .zip file. And what we're going to do is get that file on the Raspberry Pi, and this process can be repeated for the other systems and the other games you've got, so it's quite easy to upload the files. They're very, very small as well, just a few K in a lot of cases. Okay, to do this I'm going to use an FTP client or an SFTP client to copy them across. I'm going to use FileZilla, which you can get at filezilla-project.org, and you can download the client here. There's a setup file here. You just press the green button there and it'll download in the same way that we downloaded the files earlier. Run that and you'll have FileZilla installed. So if I run FileZilla now, and you press this button in the top left here, and I've set up a Raspberry option. Your host, you put the IP address in, which we saw earlier, and you can see how to get that on your screen. Yours may well be different, and probably will be, but you just put the IP address here and choose SFTP as the protocol, username Pi, password Raspberry, and that's all you have to do. Just hit connect, and it's sort of at the top area here, just scrolls through and connects, and it defaults in this home Pi directory. Now we're going to copy a ROM file across, and there is another way of doing this in Windows, but when you're doing a few files it's often easier to use something like FileZilla, but I'll just quickly cover how you can copy ROMs maybe more easily. So if you press the start button, and down the bottom here if you press //192.168.0.103, which is the IP of the Raspberry Pi, hit enter, and you've got a window popping up and it's got a ROMs folder. So if I double click the ROMs folder, I get the list of the systems, and I'm going to put a Mega Drive one in, which was Sonic. I could double click in there and I could drag the file there. So you can do it that way as well, which is pretty easy and straightforward. So there is that alternative option to put the address / the IP of your Raspberry Pi and press enter, and then just navigate into the directory you want and copy it. But for the minute I'm going to use FileZilla because it makes some things a bit more clear. Okay, so we're in the Pi folder. In the Pi folder there's a RetroPie folder here, double click that, and there's a ROMs folder, double click that, and I know that it's going to be a Mega Drive game, so double click that. Okay, now because it's empty at the moment, when you go into Emulation Station you wouldn't see an option to go into that system. Emulation Station will only let you navigate into an emulation folder if something exists in it. So as soon as we put a ROM in here we will see it. Now I know that it's going to be on the desktop, so over here if I click desktop, and I can see Sonic the Hedgehog there. Now this is a .zip file, and most of the systems don't read the zip files by default, so it's a lot safer to unzip these. The main exception to that is MAME, so when you're using the arcade emulation MAME, you keep it as in a zip file. But first I'm going to take it out of the zip by double clicking on that, and this happens to be a .bin file which Emulation Station can read, so I'll just drag that to the desktop, and I've got then Sonic the Hedgehog bin file, which is what I do need to deal with. So back here I can right mouse on that screen and press refresh, and I can see the bin file there. Just going to click and drag that over there, and it's copied over 500K excuse me, and that's available. And that's pretty much all you've got to do to get copy ROMs across to the Raspberry Pi. Obviously you can drag multiple across, you can put them in the different system folders, so you can populate all of those that are set there, and the popular ones like SNES, Mega Drive, NES, Master System, and portable ones like Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advanced, even C64 and the 8-bit computers there like Spectrum. So it's quite a range that it's ready to take and accept and emulate there. So we've copied a file across, and now out of all of the configuration I think that's pretty much it. All we've got to do now is run the Raspberry Pi, boot it up again. So let's have a look at that. We haven't configured an awful, as you've seen as you run through, there's a few bits and bobs that you can update, but even some of that's optional. You can see it's just finished the boot up there, running a few more commands, going in emulation station, and we should be able to see in here the ROM that we did for the Mega Drive, and also that it's detected a gamepad. Okay, so it's detected the one that we've put in, that you've hopefully put in now, and this is separate to the RetroArch configuration we did earlier, which is for the games. This is for the user interface. So it has detected my controller. It says hold a button to configure it, so hold a button. And okay, so now it's prompting me to configure it. I'm going to press up, down, left, right, A, B, start, select, left button, right button, and done. So on OK, I think I press A. There we go, and it's loaded it up. And you can see here by default, the RetroPie application has put, sometimes in some of these systems it's just got a text file which makes it appear, and in a couple I think we've actually got a couple of games that it puts in by default. So if I press A to select an apple, it's just a start.txt file in there, and I press B to get out of there. Then we've got IBM, start file in there, that's all that's in there. Ports, I think it's Doom, so it has got 3 in the ports: Cave Story, Doom and Duke Nukem. Again, there are other videos that I've got separately to show how to configure it to look like this, so you've got all the information from all the games there in a little snapshot in the top left corner. I'm not going to run any of the ports though, so B to get out of there. And then Genesis. Now this wouldn't normally appear because there wouldn't normally be any files in there, but we did copy the ROM over earlier. So if I press A, you can see Sonic the Hedgehog. Now this hasn't got any of the information at the top because I haven't scraped this information, which again is in the other videos, but it would work fine. And all I'd have to do is press A. So I know that when I do this, the video mode changes and it confuses the video capture, so bear with me whilst we deal with that. Okay, I pressed A and it fired up, sort of shot into this this view here, which as you can see is Sonic the Hedgehog, and that's all I need to do. And I can press start on my controller and we should see that it detects that. You might notice as well, looking at this, there we go, press start and it's reset. Looking at this, the graphics are slightly pixelated, a bit distorted, blown up because of that. And if you check out my other videos, you'll see how to make that a bit smoother, a bit more retro looking with using shaders. So it's a sort of graphical overlay to make it look a bit more retro basically. So it's on the CRTs. And I'm using my controller that I configured in RetroArch. You saw that earlier on, not the emulation station we just did. And it's working fine, no problem at all. And there you have, sort of take about 10-20 minutes maybe in total, and a lot of that was the Raspberry Pi updating itself and the Raspberry and the RetroPie components to make sure you're on the latest version. But it doesn't take long at all. Most of it is really just getting the ROMs on that you want, so the systems are configured. And then once you've got this sort of basic, you're up and away playing games, and from there you're playing retro games on a Raspberry Pi.